All right, welcome back for another episode of How to Make Money with Hard Money. And today we're joined by another good friend, Josh Taylor, who's a broker with Compass Real Estate. He's also a special partner with highrises.com. He's a builder with Whitehall Development. He owns rental properties, a property management company. So he's a wealth of knowledge in real estate. And it's really nice to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thanks for coming, my friend.
All right. So we'll kind of start with a little bit. We'll start market based. I know we're going to get through a lot today. We're going to talk about construction. We'll talk about hard money lending and your business as a realtor and property management. But we'll start with the market because I know you're obviously a broker with Compass Real Estate, which is a national broker.
Mhm.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about. I know we had a market report that came out recently, and there was some. We talked a lot about on this show about rising interest rates, insurance costs, and from a realtor's perspective. How have you seen how like 23 to the beginning of 24? How's it been for you?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Dave and Caleb.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Um, there's some changes. I mean, 2023 for me personally was probably our best year in real estate.
Wow,
So,
Okay.
and so, the market overall, at Compass, we have access to very, I'd say, wide lens. So, we've got access to, national calls, statewide calls, local calls. We have like a Southeast regional call. So, overall, we have access to a lot of data,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And, that data usually starts kind of from the broad approach of, hey, what does everybody do? They turn the television on, they watch the stock market, right?
right,
The stock market performs well, people are going to have cash.
Right.
What are they going to do with the cash? They're going to invest their cash in other areas like real estate.
yep,
So one of the reports we've seen recently is that the amount of cash in the real estate market is at an all-time high,
Yeah.
and people continue to invest their cash in transactions.
yeah. That's really
So,
good, and that's interesting that you've had a really good year because you've watched the news and all the media speculation, and we talk about how it was a tough market, right?
mhm.
I mean, you had a drastic change in interest rates, but so how was that? You had a great year though. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, well, for starters, I've been in business since 2009.
Yeah.
So, I would say last year, 100% of my business was referrals.
Okay.
So it didn't come from a website. It didn't come from lead generation. It didn't come from social media advertising. We had our best year in real estate in 15 years on referrals.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, that says a
having a
lot.
good
That's a
start and
testament.
having a good client database to kind of stay in contact with and get referrals from
Yeah.
is a good place.
You've always been like that though, primarily, right? I mean, you were one of my first real estate mentors because I got my real estate license and hung it under you as your brokerage. You had selling Tampa Bay,
Yep.
which you later sold to Compass Real Estate.
Mhm.
But you've always been like that. You've always been a huge referral guy, and everybody, and look, I have my real estate license. When I bought my house, you were my realtor too. And so I appreciate the knowledge from a builder's perspective and how you evaluate the real estate. And so that must be a big reason why you're getting so many referrals.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, I would say. And so, you can look at, a home 15 different ways. So when I look at a property for a client, I'm not looking for the sale. I'm
Yeah.
I'm looking at how the home is built, what age the home is, what the
Mhm.
insurance costs could possibly be. Before I even send you that home, Dave, I'm on Google Earth. Hey, it backs up to, a
Yeah.
weekly motel, or hey, there's a McDonald's that's, three doors down.
Yeah.
Or hey, look on Google Earth. There's traffic lights and speed humps right on the road. Well, that means you're going to have 3,000 cars, or more a day driving past you if you have speed humps, right?
Yeah.
So
It's all the things that people aren't looking at.
all the things that people aren't looking at because I like to look. The approach is, what happens when I have to resell that house for you, Dave? How hard is it going to be?
That's a good point.
And
I
if you
love
still
that.
want the home, go buy the home.
Yeah.
But,
Mhm.
I want to be able to resell it for you quickly so
Yeah.
that we can do the next deal and
Yeah.
the next deal and the next deal, right?
I love that.
So, how would you say is your mixture of investors versus first-time home buyers in your business?
In my business, not many first-time home buyers anymore.
Okay.
The first probably 5 years I was in the business, it was a lot of first-time home buyers.
Mhm.
I'd say my typical client is putting anywhere from 30% down to, you know, an all cash transaction. It also depends on the price point too. So, you know, if you're buying at, you know, under 800,000, you're typically got 20 to 30% down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're buying sub 400,000, you're typically, you know, a 95% LTV buyer
Yeah.
or an FHA, you
Mm.
know. So it really just depends.
What
But
about the
my
million up?
Yeah.
million and up cash,
A
a
lot
lot
of
of cash.
cash.
Yeah, heavy cash.
Yeah. I think
Um,
that's something most people don't think about.
Yeah.
mhm,
I remember learning that
mhm.
from you. It's like,
Heavy cash or ability to pay cash, do delayed financing,
yep.
Okay.
you know, wait 6 months, do a cash out. So it's it's a mixture, but I would say primarily, you know, our business is teetering right around the $1 million price point for average sale price.
Okay.
And you say a lot of out-of-state buyers or mostly local Florida people?
Um, COVID probably was 75% out of state buyers, you know,
Okay.
during that 2 year stretch. Um, Last year it probably teetered down to 50%. Um, you know, but we still have what I like to call like the great migration,
Okay.
right? And so we are having people move from all over the country. You know, we are in a time where commercial real estate isn't what it used to be. So somebody working in Manhattan doesn't need to be in a cubicle 9 to 5 commuting,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Spending an hour going in, spending an hour going out of the office,
Mhm.
you know, and so people can work for the most part from wherever they want, right?
Laptop and cell phone.
And
Yeah.
and
Change the scene.
so I was listening to something on American Express once, right? And it was now like 35% of their employees work from home. So they
Wow.
can work from wherever.
Wow.
Another one third of their employees are hybrid. They're called in the office once a month, twice a month, and they'll get on an airplane or they'll take
Yeah.
a train and they'll do that long haul from wherever they're living,
Yeah.
you know, once or twice a month. And then the rest of them are completely, you know, hey, we live near the office, near a location. We like to commute. We have to be in the office.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's going to change.
I agree. I think COVID kind of reformatted the way that we think about office.
So
Yeah.
somebody living in Michigan, sick of the winters, doesn't have to wait till they're 65 or 55 to retire,
Yeah.
right? They can come down here at 35 or 40, live in sunny Florida, and travel back and forth from wherever they need to go when they need to go there.
It was interesting. I saw in the Compass flyer that you had, it was like a lot of buyers from New York, of course,
Yeah.
and which all three of us are from New York.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
Canada was the other one that kind of surprised me. Have
Yeah.
you
Oh,
seen a lot of
yeah.
Canadians?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you think just same reason?
Same reason.
Yeah.
It's cold.
He yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think in Canada, there's a percentage of their population that all lives within like 1 hour of the US border as it is because
Wow.
of it's warmer,
Sure.
right?
That makes
So
sense.
it's very, very large landmass, but everybody lives right close
Yeah.
towards the border.
That's an interesting demographic.
But you know, we have our market specifically is I see a lot of people coming down because they're hockey fans. We have
Yeah. Yeah.
a good hockey fan base and but people are gradually going to be, you know, um, migrating to southern climates
Yeah.
and people are attracted to water.
In the
You know,
Bay
over
Area.
time, people just want to be near water, and we're a state with water on 3 sides.
Yeah.
Right?
So I know you're obviously a realtor, and that's your main business, but you're
Mhm.
doing a lot of other things as well, and always have. You know, I've known
Mhm.
you as a builder and a property manager, and so why don't you tell the audience a little bit? Like you had a big rental portfolio at one time. I know you sold a lot, but you still manage a lot. What kind of give the whole scope of what you're doing?
Okay, so yeah, our bread and butter is, you know, residential real estate sales.
Mhm.
And we have a property management division. We manage probably about 80 doors.
Okay.
Um, I built that over just word of mouth referrals and, you know, people coming and going and not wanting to sell. And I got relocated.
Yep.
So we have a division that basically leases out properties for homeowners, and then we manage and collect rent, handle the maintenance requests.
What kind of assets are most of those?
Class A,
Class A.
you
A lot of
know, maybe
condos, right?
some Class B. I'd say 80 to 90% are condos or townhomes.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Um,
We're gonna
my
talk about
That's my
condos.
personal preference because, you know, the association does the watching and the listening and the
Right.
neighbors.
Yeah.
And
Less roofs.
you don't have to maintain the outside, and you've got, reserves for painting on the, the exterior and roof replacement. So
Sure.
they're kind of turnkey properties that, for the most part, with the right tenant, kind of manage themselves.
Yeah. I love that philosophy. And then from a new construction perspective, you and your partner, Tom, I know you guys have done several new constructions. We've helped you finance a couple of those as well.
Yep.
What's kind of your what's your horizon or vision for your new construction business?
So we started flipping. In the 2014 to 2017 market, we flipped, I don't know, a dozen homes. And then I got with a contractor in, like, when you start building, right?
Okay.
And, we were just flipping a home. There's a lot of unknowns. It is a shorter time horizon,
Yep.
but I really was attracted to being able to build a structure and 30 years from now, drive by with my son and say, "Hey, I built that,"
Yeah.
So since 2017, we pivoted and started doing new construction. We built probably a dozen or more, single family residences
Yeah.
from the entry level, 300,000 to probably right around 800,000. So
Yeah.
we try to stay in that, entry level market for the most part. But yeah, really love new construction.
Yeah.
There's just something satisfying about building something from the ground up,
There
right?
is. And I know you've been through all the tribulations of the building as
The
well, and
market's
the cities and
the market's changed. In 2017, we could get a permit in the city of Tampa in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And
those were
now,
the days.
2 months if you're lucky, 4 months if you're in a flood zone, maybe 6 months if you're in a
You had
flood
that one
zone.
with the tree too, right? How long did that one take?
Um, that one took a while.
Over a year, right? I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Which that's why I think from when you're acting as a realtor, like the knowledge you bring from the new construction and
Yeah.
Right.
property management aspect is so
Our
important.
first couple homes we built in 4 months, and now, I mean, it's a 9 to
Fast.
11-month time frame, but COVID, I mean, builders were telling people 14 to 18 months
Yeah.
of actual construction
You were
time.
building during COVID, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you had was that Woodrow or that one was around
No, it
then?
was the DeSoto
The
property.
DeSoto ones, okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so you saw the supply, you saw it from 2016, 17, 18 range
Mhm.
to then the COVID issues. A lot of it was around supply, right? And the
Yeah,
city
the
was an
tract
issue, but
builders were eating up all the materials.
yeah,
So, you're building 1 home here, 2 homes here, you're gonna find it hard to get the subs to wanna work with you
Yeah.
unless they're a very entry-level subcontractor who, may not be in the business 3 years from now. But if you
Right.
want those
yeah,
big names, you're just a number, and they're in these communities building for Lennar, D.R. Horton, Taylor Morrison,
yeah,
and so, yeah, it was a big shift in, you know, "Hey, I can go buy a piece of dirt and build a house and sell it in 7 or 8 months," to double, if not triple the timeline in
yeah.
some cases.
So how would you say being a real estate investor has it affected you being able to service your clients too, not just being a realtor?
It's just a wealth of knowledge, it's being able to have conversations with people on various different topics, right?
Mhm.
And so, a client who's an engineer would very much enjoy, you know, an agent with a background in construction, right? You
Right.
have something to talk about.
Mhm.
An interior designer would look at something different, right?
Yeah.
A CPA is a numbers guy, so
Right.
you need to be able to talk on interest rates and payments and term sheets, right? And so, the more you know, the easier it is for you to speak to people,
Mhm.
because you're going to
Yeah.
deal with, selling 80 to 100 homes a year. Every single client's a different person,
Yeah.
right?
All walks of
And
life.
being able to have something in common and something to share with them so that they keep coming back
Yeah.
and so that they keep giving your phone number out to their family, friends, employees,
Yeah, when you actually help
is
somebody and
important.
provide value,
Yeah.
that's something you can't get referrals if you're not providing value.
Mhm.
So that's a testament to that for sure.
Yeah.
As well on the we're building the 6 Gray Street townhomes in South Tampa, and you've been, as a realtor in the transaction, and we're going to do some development projects together as well. But
Mm.
we engaged you early on as the realtor in that transaction, and you were helping us with everything from the plans, the designs. I mean, you helped bring in a designer to help us with the renderings and
Yep.
what finishings we're going to pick out. I remember when you and I said to Mike, I was like, we got to send these plans to Josh because I remember when you redlined them and he's like,
Yeah.
hey, move this closet here. This should be a pocket door, not a swing this way. And it's like, hey, the laundry room's a little small. I mean, like we're reflecting on all these little things that most people don't notice. And yeah, you're going to list them and sell them for us. But you've been instrumental the whole way. And I don't think you can provide that type of value if you're not like building homes yourself.
No, for
It's
sure.
unique.
And I'd say new construction kind of dominated a lot of the COVID market even. So I'd say 25% of my residential real estate was new construction. So being able to like walk a house and understand architectural flaws, I like to say,
Yeah.
or get in a townhome and realize, hey, there's no washer and dryer in here, but this is not the right size room, right? So, or just
A lot of
I
the
mean,
defects too that we were talking about. I mean, so what are some of the defects that you see really common
in
in
townhomes,
townhomes? Yeah, or new construction,
yeah,
especially
flat,
in Florida,
I'd say flat walls, having that
flat
that
roofs.
really modern, like I call it California style, like type of construction
Okay.
doesn't work well in Florida
Yeah.
for the most part. You see a lot of it in Miami, but we're in a tropical environment and roofs have pitches
Yep.
for a reason to shed water.
Yep.
And roof overhangs allow water to drip down the side of the buildings without running down the sides of the walls. So if you get, let's say, I've seen plenty of townhomes in like South Tampa, for instance, where 3 to 4 years after they're built, there's issues reselling them because the association is litigating with the builder or the architect for stucco issues or
Yeah.
vice versa. And
Yeah.
a lot of it has
A lot
to
of
just
stucco.
do with the architectural design.
Yep.
So
They say like 80, 90% of the building defect claims are water intrusion
water
of
intrusion.
some sort down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, it comes from flat roofs. And I mean, we took away like, it's the awnings too as well. Did we add the awnings?
We added awnings
To
over
protect the
the
windows.
sliding
Yeah.
back doors
Yep.
because there was no roof overhang.
Exactly.
So, we built a house before and it had a gable roof, and the gable roof at the back just had a sliding glass door with no patio roof over it, right? So
Right.
eventually, if you don't put a patio roof over that door, gonna have water. It's inevitable. Wind-driven rain is a true thing in
It's so
Florida,
true. Yeah.
right?
We know that.
So you go to a condo and you walk out to a balcony and there's like a 6 or a 9-inch lip you have to step over. It's because you could have a 12-foot balcony, but there's still wind-driven rain that
Yeah.
are going to affect the building envelope.
Yeah.
So
Those are things that, especially when you're the developer or the builder, like, there's a 7-year statute of limitations on that, but somebody could come calling 5 years later,
Yeah.
and and when you have
6 years,
yeah,
11
years,
months, and 29 days, they can come calling.
so these
right?
are like minor tweaks. They sound so, oh, you just added an overhang, cool, but that saved you, 2 years of litigation with a buyer, or having to go back 5 years later. They really are very important details.
Mhm.
And so anybody, and I think your story is so interesting, especially for our audience, because a lot of our audience is newer real estate investors or very sophisticated investors that have gone through a similar path from, I think it's normal progression to like flipping homes to eventually growing into new construction. It's a very similar story to what we've done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We were flipping 30 homes in 2022, and now we're kind of migrating towards new construction.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's market based as well.
I
But
believe in not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So as, a new agent entering the market, diversify.
Yeah.
If
yeah, it's
if
good
you're
advice.
interested in something, do it. Add it to your skill set, right?
Right.
I started out at a company, in 2009, and they told me I could not do property management. Well, why not? That made me want to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Don't tell me
so,
no.
Yeah.
don't just have 90% of your income coming from one segment, whether it's buyers or rentals or luxury leasing or property management,
Mhm.
or investing yourself. You have to spin a lot of hats. I tell people, don't rely on one source of income,
It's good advice.
Yeah.
You're an
right?
entrepreneur.
Because that can be taken away tomorrow.
Right.
Right. And so if you have all your eggs in one basket, then you're going to be scrambling.
That's true.
Right. But if you're getting, 10% of your income's here, 10% here, 10% here,
Yeah.
you're always able to pivot. Right.
Big
Yeah.
believer in that as well. I love that.
Mm.
Let's jump towards a little bit of your outlook towards 2024. I know,
Yeah.
we've kind of talked about what happened last year a little bit. What are you seeing right now in the market? It's right now it's March 2nd, 2024.
I mean, I feel the market, right,
Yeah.
from a local standpoint, right? So, number one, interest rates remain high, right?
Right.
Which impacts housing affordability, right? Um, but we still have this inventory crunch where homeowners with 3% interest rates, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
They're not trading up for a bigger house that's going to give them a payment that's, anywhere, like
Two,
it
three
could double
times. Yeah.
yeah.
2 to 3 times what
Easily.
they're currently paying. So people are content. People are traveling. People are traveling more than they ever were before
Interesting.
because they can work from wherever. They can go on a vacation and still clock in at work from the computer, from
Yeah.
a Zoom call, from a Google Meet.
Mm.
So, interest rates, I forecast them to start ticking down. I think they're going to settle towards the end of this year and anywhere in the 5.5 to 6.5 range.
Mhm.
But I think rates are the new norm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Don't know if we'll see twos ever again, huh?
No.
Not in our lifetime, maybe.
no, I don't think, and not anytime soon. So interest rates, are a very good indicator. But
How do you
I,
guide your buyers
Right.
on
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Like, what's you have to combat that every day, I imagine.
Mhm.
Oh, the rates are high right now. It's
Yeah.
like,
Prices
what do
all
you?
time high. Rates are high.
Yeah,
How you
what's
gonna
your
hide that?
what's your rebuttal to that?
you know, each sub market, where do you, my question to them would be, where do you want to buy and what type of property? And we start talking about that
Yeah.
Okay.
to number one, see if I can meet their expectations, right? And then if I can't, we talk about the alternatives. So other markets. Well, this is where you're going to be if you want a house at this price point.
Yeah.
We need to be in, Dade City, Zephyr Hills. Are you willing to do that? Do you work from an office? Do you work from home? Provide the options of what work,
Yep.
or be realistic and say they don't work. You should wait a year,
Yeah.
right? You should save up more money, right? You
Being
should.
transparent and giving them the tough information. You do that with listings too. I mean,
Mhm.
you were telling me last week how you turned down a listing.
Mhm.
Why did you turn it down?
Unrealistic expectations on price.
Yeah.
So, so as far as the market goes, there are sub markets within a market,
Okay.
right? And here's an example: would be if you want to buy a single family home in West Chase, you can expect 30 people in an open house in the first weekend and multiple offers.
Right.
If you want to go to Venetian Isles, north of downtown St. Pete, a neighborhood that recently flooded,
Flooded. Yeah.
there's 124 single family homes on the market right now
Really?
in one
I didn't know that.
small neighborhood,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And if you comb through the photos, half of them are like remodeled because they had to be remediated,
Right.
right? So, um, the condo market is different from the single family home market.
Yeah.
Um, the single family home $400,000 market is different than the $1 million up single family home market, right?
Right.
And each buyer is different
Yeah. You
in those sub
really
markets.
have to split it.
You can't compare Florida to California. You
Yeah.
can't compare the panhandle of Florida to Tampa. You can't compare Tampa to Miami,
Right.
right? So, I think our Tampa market has, for the most part, been very sheltered so far.
Right.
There's a lot of development opportunities here. It is,
Yeah.
people are moving here, and it's Florida, so
Yeah.
it's a desirable location for, I call it the mass migration,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Of people moving here. So it really depends, I guess. The answer is on the
It's
sub
good.
market
Yeah.
that you're
Yeah.
looking at, the price point you're looking
I think
at.
that's the right answer. Well,
Um,
I mean, how about on the rental market overall? Just be
Right.
more broad in the Tampa Bay area, because I know you said
Mhm.
you have 80 doors you're managing.
Mhm.
We have around 30. Um, what have you seen from rental rates? Because I mean, they climbed right from
rental
19 to
rates have
22,
stabilized,
and now,
Okay.
yeah, you're seeing
and
that.
we have, in certain
How recent?
instances,
Like,
recent, like the
yeah,
last 6
last
months.
6 months.
Yeah, the last 6 months. So, um, rentals aren't flying off the shelves. Um, People who bought from, I'd say, the beginning of 2022, maybe the end of 2021 to now,
Mhm.
if they're not willing to sell at a loss, you know,
Yeah, they're looking to
then
stick a
they're looking to
tenant.
rent.
Yeah,
So, and you have a lot of new apartments coming to the market. A
yeah,
lot of the high rises
especially
and the
downtown, right?
townhomes. I've even seen D.R. Horton out in Progress Village, Riverview,
Mhm.
build an entire rental community.
We know the builders out
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
So, so the rental market, the supply of rentals definitely outweighs the demand. But you also have people selling and wanting to rent because they're waiting for
yeah,
this big depreciation in the market, which just hasn't happened yet,
yeah.
right? Like everybody expects the 2008,
Right.
and then we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting, and it hasn't happened because we have this migration of people moving to Florida
Right.
and to Tampa, and to the South, and they
Yep.
can work from wherever. So it's a very interesting
Dynamic.
dynamic
It really
of
is.
where we are in the market.
And as you said, these like with the rental rates, we've talked about this on the previous episode. As the rental rates kind of have stabilized, we've seen obviously interest rates have increased, but also insurance costs have increased, taxes have increased here, especially in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If my tax bill on my house doubled, so like that's not an uncommon thing to see, especially if you purchased 2 years ago and you're getting reassessed. So your holding costs are being much higher. So these rentals, not all of them are necessarily profitable, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Not always. Um, I mean, the first thing we look to do when somebody's vacating is we try to negotiate a slightly lower lease rate to lock them in for our owner, right? Hey, we take 5% less, right? Because the market isn't what it is. Or
Tough
instead of taking
conversations.
2 weeks, it might take, 30, 40 days to find a new tenant, right? It
Yep.
is a tough
Setting that
conversation to have.
expectation.
Yeah. And in the condo world, if your HOA fees just went up 30%,
I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
how are you going to
Big
take
deals.
10% less on your rent,
Right.
right? Um,
Multifamily markets being affected in a very similar way.
Mhm.
Let's
And
talk about
insurance is a hot topic.
insurance. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Across the
And
board.
and the condo market.
So let's talk about the condo market because you are the condo expert, right? Explain what is highrises.com and what's your affiliation there? You've been there for a while.
Highrises.com, it recently sold, I think, about a year and a half ago. So, but I was the referral partner for the entire Tampa Bay market.
Mhm.
And so I built, I'd say 25% of my, my client base off of condo sales.
Okay.
All right. So I've seen over the years the average price per square foot, which is how HOA fees are calculated in a building. A 600 square foot unit
Yep.
doesn't have the same HOA fees as a 1,600 square foot unit, but I've seen the average price per square foot, go from the luxury market of 60 cents to $1 or $1.12, and
Big change.
the I'd say the class B condo product, the garden style wood frame, go from 40 cents a square foot to 60 or 80 cents a square foot,
Yeah.
right?
You're saying
The
that
cost,
Harbor Island one you just said
Yeah.
you bought that one for how much was it?
yeah,
Back in the day when you bought it, it was like 100 something.
yeah, yeah,
That's insane.
yeah, and the
100.
prices have gone through the roof, um, but the fees in these associations have gone up dramatically, and there's been a lot of special assessments coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you say the condo market's affected by the Sears report? Because that's been mandated by the state of Florida.
Even
So
what is this year's report first, Caleb? Maybe you could, if you want to break it down.
yeah, the structural engineering reserve
Study.
study. Right. That's what it is. Structural engineering reserve
Integrity,
study.
structural integrity.
And there you go. But mandating that they have to have that in every high rise at this point.
Yep.
What has that done to the market, prices, and how you're making offers to be profitable in the condo market?
Yeah. So by the end of 2024, um, buildings 3 stories or higher
Mhm.
that are over 30 years old, 25 years if you're within 3 miles of the coastline, have to have a milestone engineering inspection done on the structure itself
Mhm.
due to the Surfside collapse in
Yep.
Miami
Yeah.
a few years back. And so you have buildings from the 60s, 70s, 80s that may or may not have ever had an engineer come in and inspect the building.
Mhm.
Right. So when that inspection reveals repairs, those repairs could be $50 million,
Right.
right?
especially if there's a structural.
And
Yeah.
you can no longer kick the can down the curb, right? As I like to say.
Right.
So a $50 million assessment on a building has to be equally divided amongst the owners. And I mean, you could have a $400,000 condo get hit with a $200,000 assessment.
And the assessment means you have to make one-time payment, right? Of that. Is that
Um,
how they break it in payment plans? Or?
most associations will probably go out and get a loan from a bank.
Okay.
And so you'll see, a monthly HOA of X,
Mhm.
and then an additional HOA fee of Y for it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years,
And that's to
right?
pay for the loan,
And that's
essentially.
to pay for the loan because the work has to be done.
Mhm.
Right.
Can't wait.
So if the homeowners can't fund, let's say, a $10 million assessment, then they have to go get a loan because the work has to be done.
Yep.
Right.
How can that affect insurance for these owners? Obviously, how we could talk about
Yeah.
the values too. It can affect the
Mhm.
value of the property, but I imagine that affects the insurance as well.
Absolutely. There's a um, an in- a sample downtown Tampa condo, we'll call it.
Yep.
Um, and
For liability purposes, we will not
their
name.
fees went their fees on a unit went from $700 to $1,300 in 1 year.
Okay.
And if you look at the budget from 2023 to 2024, the insurance went from 250,000 to 750,000.
Oh,
Right.
3x.
So it 3x. And what the insurance company required was a reappraisal. So I believe every 3 or 5 years, there needs to be an insurance appraisal done on the building.
Right.
And pre-COVID to after COVID, the cost to rebuild that structure went from, let's say, 25 million to 40 million,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And so
So just everything's getting more expensive. And meanwhile,
insurance across the board, if you compare one budget year to another, right,
So-
has gone up.
So one of the things I would like to ask you is, has that deterred you from investing in condos? Or would you tell people, because these reports are mandated and they have to go with these assessments, is there a different strategy for investing in condos now?
great
Or
question.
are you just lowballing people? Or, how are you?
Well,
What
first off,
strategy do you
condos are a lifestyle.
Okay.
Right. So I want a view. I want amenities. I want to be downtown. I don't need a car, So if somebody wants a lifestyle, it's hard to talk them out of that lifestyle. Right.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say it's my job to talk them out, but I would educate them on the risks, right? The risks of assessments, the risks of, hey, these are what the fees have gone from over the years, right? But every year, a new budget comes out. So
Right.
5 years from now, those $1,000 a month fees could be back down to $500 a month, right?
Right.
So I'd say in the short term, 1 to 3 year range, until the milestone and engineering inspections have been done
Yeah.
and the repairs have been done, it is a risk. But it's always been a risk to own a condo.
Sure. You just have
Always.
to make educational.
There's always been assessments. There's always been, variation of what your HOA fees are on an annual basis. There's
Right.
always variations in insurance rates, right? So, but the cost of owning a condo right now is more expensive than
It's
I've
like,
ever seen it in 15 years, right? But what goes up can usually come down.
Yeah.
But from a negotiating standpoint, it's supply and demand at the end of the day. So if you look at a building and there's not, and somebody wants a 1-bedroom condo and there's 9 1-bedrooms on the market and there's 0 pending and 1 unit selling a month, then you have negotiating power, right? If
Right.
you look at another building and there's nothing on the market, nothing sold in 3 months, right? And it's listed and you're competing against multiple offers, then there's no negotiating power.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
that's really
Just
what
gotta
it
read the
comes down
market.
to is each condo building has its own little sub-market of supply and demand.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So true.
Right.
And even like you really have to look at how it can affect the value. That's kind of the risk assessment that you're guiding them through and saying, well, how old is the building? How many stories is it? Has there been a report done? How long ago was it? What were the findings at that time? And you can kind of try to back in if you don't have a current report.
If a building is over, my opinion, 25 years old right now,
Yeah.
the first thing I'm doing is I'm asking the listing agent and the seller or the property manager, has the report been completed? Is it available? Right.
Mhm.
If not, when is it scheduled for?
Okay.
Okay.
So
'Cause
if
you
you
know they
want to
have to have
buy
it
a
scheduled?
1980s condo on Bayshore and they haven't done the report yet, that's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Are
Right.
most of them scheduled, would you say, since it is 2024 now? Or
I've seen some buildings, where they said, yeah, it's scheduled, but we had one done 5 years ago. That's what you want to hear,
okay.
right?
That
That's what
means
you
they've
want to
had
hear, that somebody's been there, they've already gone through an engineering inspection and addressed things, whether it's 5 or 10 years ago, right?
okay. Yep.
If they don't know, it probably has never happened, right?
How about other documents that you ask for from the HOA? I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that we've talked about recently is like meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Meeting minutes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I would get at least 6 months of meeting minutes.
Okay.
In the past, it'd be rare that a client would want it or understand it or
Yeah.
want to be involved. But just the risk of assessments, you want a 6-month history of what is being discussed in the board meetings
Okay.
because they have to itemize it on the agenda and they'll talk about it, right? So
And what would be a red flag, or what would you specifically identify in those minutes?
any discussion of special assessments, any discussion of inspections being done, any discussions of uh, repairs, any
Yeah.
discussions of future discussions. Hey, we're going to talk about the roof replacement at the Q2 meeting, right? Well, then the roof needs to be replaced, right? So then what do the reserves look like? Do you have a reserve study
Right.
that says, hey, we have to replace the roof. It'll cost $1 million, but we have 500,000 in reserves already, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
there's a building on Harbor Island. They replaced the roofs, and the homeowners got hit with a $1,500 assessment. That's a drop in the bucket, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
not
right?
bad.
No, it's not bad.
Versus,
Manageable.
hey, we're redoing the roofs, and we're going to hit everybody with the $22,000 assessment.
It's probably because they had some reserves in that scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine.
Mhm.
What kind of reserves percentages are you looking for? And then if we could talk about financing a little bit, and that'll kind of lead us to the hard money side as well.
Um, I like to go based on like Fannie Mae requirements. So Fannie Mae likes to see a 10% reserve allocation.
Okay.
20% or
10% of
higher
what?
is way better. So if the association makes $100,000 a year, I'm just using a number,
Sure.
based on the income
So the
from
revenue.
the homeowners paying,
Mhm.
right? Their monthly fees or quarterly fees, however the fees are collected.
Mhm.
10% of the revenue goes to reserves. And the reserves are there to cover the cost of replacing things, right? Paint, roads, roofs,
Yep.
etc. Right?
All the common
And
areas.
so the more money that is being allocated annually towards reserves, the better.
Yep.
Right.
Because that association is planning for the future.
Yep. De-risks assessments,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Mhm.
So how about financing as well? Because I know you're the first one that taught me always with, I remember, I think it was Jason at American Momentum who did
Yep.
a ton of these too. And he knew which buildings were approved for financing and which buildings were not. I
Mhm.
don't think a lot of people know that some buildings are just not approved at all for financing. And why is that?
It really comes down to the type of loan, the
Right.
down payment, if a condo questionnaire is needed, how the property manager answers the condo questionnaire, how the board or the property management company's attorney has indicated they answer questions.
Right.
So I want to say about a year to year and a half ago, Fannie Mae introduced a rider to the condo questionnaire that has 3 pages of structurally related questions.
Mm,
And Fannie Mae, I don't think, thought through the fact that the managers for the associations, the third-party management companies, were instructed by their lawyers to just not answer the questions at all,
Right.
right?
a lot of liability answering
A lot
anything
of
like that.
liability,
Yeah.
right? And now with this milestone report, it's, hey, do you have knowledge of defects, structural defects? Does it technically affect the habitability? Like if the issues with a parking garage that the units are not above
Yeah.
or attached to, then does it really affect the habitability if the issues with the parking garage,
Right.
right? So it's gray area. Then
That's
some
good.
lenders at 25% down or more will do portfolio loans. They'll lend their own money,
Right.
and they don't care about a condo questionnaire. But for borrowers that are putting 20% down or less, it's a Fannie Mae product.
Yep.
they need a questionnaire, and it really all depends on how the questionnaire is filled out,
Yeah.
right?
That's good info.
And I believe
And so it's case by case. So you could have litigation one day and then 60 days later not have it. It could be settled, right? It could
Yeah.
be litigation over a slip and fall, which usually falls under the association's insurance liability policy. So it's really,
You need somebody who knows.
you really need
You
somebody
need
who
somebody to help
knows
you
how to
navigate that.
finance the buildings, but
yeah.
who's done a loan in there like 30 days ago.
Recently. Yeah.
Recently,
Or
because they
isn't
already
it-
know the answers.
Yeah.
Mhm. I know
Because,
there's a big thing with warrantable and non-warrantable condos,
Mm-hmm.
and that affects the financing.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say that affects for people applying for financing, whether it's warrantable or not warrantable, or the condo has a land lease or things like that?
Warrantable or non-warrantable is definitely it falls back on the questionnaire, because it's not just, hey, is there 10% allocated towards reserves? It's, hey, is the delinquency rate,
Right.
are people not paying their HOA fees?
right.
You have more than 15% of the units behind on HOA fees more than 60 days, well, then there's a problem.
Right.
There's a reason why people aren't paying, right?
Mhm.
And if the market isn't bottoming out and the prices aren't dropping and people aren't walking away from mortgages, then it could be a construction related disagreement where people don't want to pay for things, right?
Yep.
So, it's at the beach, is there an on-site on-site rental office at the bottom of the condo building that helps people rent their units out like a VRBO? Well, then technically that's a condo hotel,
Yep.
right? Then that's non-warrantable. So there's a lot of
Right.
like categories that could be
nuances, yeah.
non-warrantable that the condo questionnaire really fills out. So my suggestion, even to cash buyers that I have, is I send them a blank condo questionnaire. I say, a lender would want this filled out.
Still get
Do you want to pay for this? All of the information on this is important. So I give them the option to get the condo questionnaire, even
Yeah.
if they're paying cash.
Yeah, I think it's something really important to get.
Right.
All right, because we're finishing up here, I'd like to switch to just some of your experiences with bank financing versus hard money lending on new construction, condos, kind of
Mhm.
all of the above. But I know you have a really good perspective on ability to secure financing for new construction. And new construction for us is a big product this year. It's something we're going to go a little bit heavier towards. And we are offering a lot of spec build construction loans.
Mhm.
And as somebody, if you haven't been building 10 homes plus a year, those are difficult loans to procure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, for starters, you have to be told no a lot, right? And
Took you that many
so-
times to call us?
Yeah. I mean, when you start, nobody will lend you money, right?
Yeah.
Unless you find somebody to JV with you, right? You bring in an equity partner that has the history.
Sure.
Gotcha.
And so, but then you're giving up control and profits,
Yeah.
right? So, and then you can build 2 or 3 homes. You can go to a bank and they'll want you to, you want a loan, a construction loan for 250,000. They're going to say, sure, park that amount in our bank. We need you to park that amount in the bank. We're not going to take your other properties as collateral. Um, and so, and then they're going to run your credit score. They're going to verify your income and assets. And so for me,
You checked a lot of those boxes.
for
you know?
me, I started with no place to go, right?
Right.
And we had enough successful projects under our belt for me to think, hey, we're making good money, me and my partner. We've
How'd you
got
fund
the
the first couple?
history, right? And
Lot
let's
of
go to
cash.
a bank and try to get traditional financing, right?
Right.
And we were told no by like 3 banks, right? And each said no, but come back to us, right? And so for me, it was, hey, I need to be able to do this. I need access to the cash. I want to be able to go out and buy a house for my family and not have anything fall back on me, make it difficult on my debt to income ratios.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a big one.
I don't want to, on my personal credit score, now to the point where it's like, I see the hard money lending as a partner in the deal, right? And I'm okay with getting access to the cash immediately,
Yeah.
getting draws the next day almost, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And being able to go and buy and sell my own real estate, build a house with my wife, or, buy investment properties, get Fannie Mae loans, and not have it be like a crutch to the business, so to
Right.
say, right? So
Love that. I love that.
I like to say you guys are like the partner in the deal, right? And so
Still in our slogan. I love it.
I'm more than okay giving up a piece of the income to have the partner that's going to make it easy for me to just burn and turn the projects.
I love that. I think also, and we take that approach too. Like we are a partner in the deal, and I think you're going to have to give a portion of the profits for the capital either way, right?
Right.
Because for me, and when we build, it's like we can consider taking out a hard money loan. There's a cost associated to that. We can use our own cash. There's a cost associated to that as well, and that's called an opportunity cost.
Right.
You could have used that money for something else. Or you have somebody finance it as a JV, as you said, and that's a cost too. And sometimes that's even higher cost of splitting profits.
I even remember one bank says, sure, we'll do it, but it's got to be a house you're building for yourself in your personal name, and you can only do one at a time.
Yeah.
So already there, I cannot be looking for my next project until
tough.
this project's done.
Right.
Right. And you want to be able to have a schedule of things where, hey, we're completing Eskimo right now. What's the next one? So
Exactly.
we have to get started. We have to get the dirt. We have to do the planning because it doesn't take 3 weeks anymore.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be 3 or 4 months before we have shovels in the ground on the next project. Right. So, that's another thing is being able to help me look at what's next, the next, the next.
I love that, man.
Convenience
Awesome.
is key. Convenience
Awesome.
is key.
Well, cool. We've kind of went over the time here today. You have any other questions you want to leave
I
with?
wanted to ask you, advice would you give a young Josh Taylor coming into the real estate market today and how it sits currently?
I get this question a lot. There's a lot of agents that I talk to, new agents to the business. And my best analogy was the first broker I ever had, 2009. You need to be able to spin a dozen plates, right? Don't just get up there and do one thing. Don't just go sit in open houses. You need to do a little bit of everything, whether it's
good advice.
showing luxury apartments downtown, whether it's, I don't know if Craigslist works anymore, but I got on Craigslist and I used to cold call people who are trying to rent their properties by owner, right? Whether it's buyers, whether it's farming, whether it's, direct mail, you have to set up a system where you can attempt to get one deal a month from one thing you're doing. If you're doing 12 things, all you need is one deal a month, but you have 12 deals.
Brilliant.
Right? And that's kind of how I approach it is, do a little bit consistently over a long period of time in different areas, spin all the plates, and then it'll all eventually kind of fall in your lap.
Yeah.
So
I love it. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Beautiful. Well, we'll sign off here today. Thanks again for coming, man. This was a great
Thanks for
one. A
having
lot of
me.
good knowledge. We'll have you on
Appreciate
again for
you
sure.
guys.
All right, Josh.
Awesome.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks again for tuning in to How to Make Money with Hard Money. Please like and subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms. And you can watch this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.